People say I talk about some weird stuff, some far out stuff. But how about that chair that you're sitting in isn't solid? How weird is that? This reality is nothing like we think it is.
When I saw what Icke is doing, I was a bit jealous on him. Wow, look at what this guy's doing.
I don't know if anybody else could do it but him, actually.
We are in a period now where speaking your truth is not just important, it's utterly crucial to where humanity goes from here. The world needs renegades, and it needs them now.
And censorship is everywhere. And here's another story. Open University, forced to cancel conference following threats from the transgender lobby. The Open University was forced to cancel a conference on prison reform following threats from the transgender lobby. It has emerged. Notice, threats. These people will talk about being against violence and wanting equality and wanting inclusivity, while they make threats. This is what the ultra-Zionist lobby do, as I've just said a few minutes ago. They make threats against venues if they allow people to speak that they don't want people to hear what they have to say. Threats. See, this is the progressive mentality. It has no capacity for free thought. I'm not talking about people who are left of centre in politics. Not the same thing. Progressive and left of centre is not the same thing. Progressive and liberal is not the same thing. Absolutely not the same thing. In fact, it's the opposite of liberal. And it's the opposite of what the traditional left in politics used to be and used to stand for, because it's been taken over. I call them Soros progressives because he's put so much money into making this happen. So we have now this Open University that so often, they say that that the National Health Service in Britain is in crisis because of the waiting lists and the length of the waiting lists for people to have operations. But the biggest waiting list, I understand, is for people to have their backbone removed. Apparently, they're queuing round the bloody block and out into the countryside, waiting for this operation. You see it all the time. And now, of course, obviously, the Open University somehow got to the front of the queue, and that's been done now. And thus you have this. Over 100 delegates had already bought tickets for the two-day event in May, which was coordinated or co-organised by the Centre for Crime and Justice Studies, the CCJS. But earlier this month, attendees and speakers were notified that the conference had been called off. The organisation, which is an educational charity, had been accused of transphobia for its stance that transgender female prisoners should be incarcerated separately from female prisoners. Well, you see, this is what happens. And the transgender activist lobby, and a lot of people who are genuinely transgender don't support any of this crap that the activists get involved in. They just want to get on with their lives. But what they need to understand is that there'll be another one along in a minute. And what I mean by that is another minority, probably a smaller minority, and they will then go to the top of the pyramid hierarchy or victimhood. And then they will be treated by the new chief victim in the same way that the transgender activists are now treating women. Because women were once right up there in the hierarchy of victimhood. I'm not having to go at women. There are many things about what's happening in society, what has been happening in society over the years. which had to be put right. So I'm not against female activism at all in any way, shape or form for equality, not for domination. You don't reach equality by replacing discrimination with discrimination. You don't. You create equality by having equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. That's the end of human society if we do that. The equality of opportunity and fairness and justice, the same fairness and justice for all people, irrespective of what they look like or where they come from. That's where I'm coming from. But that's not where the activists come from. In all these different self-identity groups, they want domination, not equality. So women have now gone down the pecking order, and transgender activists are above them. And so women's rights now are being trampled by the transgender activists. And so the right of a woman to go to the toilet or to be in a prison cell with other women, instead of being forced to do that with people in a male body who say they identify as women, that is now transphobia. It's not a woman's right to decide that they don't want to go into a toilet or a prison cell or anywhere private and intimate with someone who is in a male body. That right, which they have every right to choose, is now transphobia. Because there's always an obia or an ist to describe someone having an opinion they have every right to have. So, of course, we're getting women's sport absolutely destroyed by having people in male bodies with greater strength and power and physical power to take part in women's sport. And they win. You know, I know that's shocking and you can't believe it's possible, but they do actually win, which makes women's sport basically an irrelevance for women, because they know increasingly, as more and more transgender take part in male bodies, they cannot compete. So it's all right for a woman that in physical terms has limitations in terms of sport power and strength than men have, to work their hearts out and their socks off to succeed in their sport on a level playing field where they're competing with people with the same body type. And of course, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. You know, when you start with a strength power disadvantage genetically, it's, well, that's okay, but how far further forward in your achievement are you going to get in relation to that disadvantage compared with a man? How far is he going to get compared to his advantage? And often the distance between the two says that the woman has actually achieved a greater goal, because they've got more out of their genetic situation than a man has. So they've achieved more in that sense. But all that's kind of gone now, because, or going, it's not gone completely, obviously, it's just really just starting. But once you are competing with people in male bodies saying that they identify as women, then you know when you get up in the morning to go and to the swimming pool or to the running track, you've got no chance of winning at the end of it because the game is rigged. Now, in a fair society, as in this situation with the prisons, people would say, okay, we have to be fair to all parties here, and we have to find a compromise. We have to listen to all points of view, but that doesn't happen. By definition, because of the way the hierarchy works, the transgender activists must win, as we currently are, because that's the way it is. And you're a bigot if you disagree. So it goes on to say that the Open University faced quite significant pressure from transgender activists. They received a number of emails where some of the language was extraordinarily overheated, because believe in fairness and justice. A source told the Daily Telegraph. They were effectively being threatened with demonstrations and disruptive activity, possibly in the conference hall itself, and some kind of picket line or protest outside the conference. Last month, the CCJS released a statement on transgender prisoners, which said that the prison service has a duty to provide fair, decent, and respectful provision for trans prisoners. It went on. Even the current state of the prison service, in the case of trans women prisoners, we consider this is at best achieved through the provision of accommodation that is separate from female prisoners. The statement was released following the case of transgender prisoner Karen White, a convicted rapist and paedophile who was born a man but used a transgender persona to attack female prisoners in a women's prison. The prison service has since apologised for failings over the case. It was in a queue, having its backbone deleted at the time. Now, you would think there would be some contrition from transgender activists when this has happened. That someone claiming to be transgender who's in a male body then rapes female prisoners. You'd think there'd be some contrition. Oh yeah, well, hold on. I see your point now. No. Because these people have no capacity for free thought. And when I say these people, I mean activists. And I don't just mean transgender activists. I mean progressive activists, because they are absolutely the same mentality, the same software program, as I would put it. And the same way of seeing the world, the same entitlement, obsession that all these activists kind of operate on. It's utterly sickening, really. And here's another one before I move on to another subject. Cambridge University withdraws visiting fellowship of academic who refuses to refer to transgender people by chosen pronouns. I'm talking, of course, about this the Canadian academic Jordan Peterson. Cambridge University has rescinded its offer of a visiting fellowship to controversial academic Jordan Peterson, who refuses to refer to transgender people by their chosen pronouns after outcry from faculty and students. Is faculty something to do with faculties? Because if it is, it ain't working. The Canadian psychologist, who has hundreds of thousands of fans, styles himself as the professor against political correctness, and good on him too, and has argued argued that men are victims of gender discrimination, which increasingly is blatantly bloody obvious. No one wants to look at it. He also said the idea of white privilege is a Marxist lie. Well, of course, some people are privileged because they're white. And some white people are sleeping in the bloody street. But this is what happens when you get the incapable of free thought mentality. You cannot see shades of grey. You can only see literally black and white. The professor first came to fame in 2016 because he opposed an anti-discrimination bill that means he had to use the preferred pronouns of his students and colleagues. He said that the law infringed on his free speech, refusing to use any other pronoun other than he or she. Now, that is his right. People call me lots of things, but I don't complain about it. Because although they may be idiots, they have the freedom, the human right to be an idiot. And therefore, say what you like. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me because it has no impact. Because I choose not to let it. And if these people don't have the freedom of speech to hurl abuse at me, then who's deciding where freedom of speech ends? Because once you do that, it's over. As we've seen, more and more excuses are made then, once you get your foot in the door, to delete more and more freedom of speech with more and more ever-growing excuses. So the transgender people may want him to call them by their chosen pronouns. By the way, something like 80,000 children have so far died of starvation in Yemen as a result of the bombardment by Saudi Arabia, armed by America, Britain and others. Anyone thought in the transgender activist community that maybe that might be worth focusing on more than whether you're called he, she, or frickin' they? Worth pondering on, I think. Anyway, this is what happens when the software program replaces free thought and someone presses enter. So what's happened is Cambridge University have withdrawn this offer of being of a visiting fellowship, whatever bloody hell that means. He's a visiting fellow. Really? Well, I'm a visiting fellow. I visit people all the time. Oh no, it means something. No, it doesn't. Who wants to be a visiting fellow of a bloody university that's going to do this? Another one in the bloody line for the backbone operation. So anyway, academics and student unions, progressive brackets, publicly protested his appointment. He has another opinion other than ours. He cannot visit us and be a fellow. With lecturer Priyamvada Gopal sarcastically tweeting, oh, gold, free thought actually allows sarcasm, or lack of it does. Jordan Peterson to be my colleague later this year. So excited, so much to learn, so much wisdom to glean. Actually, you probably are right, even though you are attempting sarcasm. She's a lecturer. Well, he's a lecturer, I don't know. PhD student Liski Hewitts tweeted, enraged and disappointed at Cambridge University that Jordan Peterson has been given a visiting fellowship. Such hate-mongering shouldn't be given a place at our university. Hate-mongering. No, I choose to call you he or she. I don't choose to call you what you want me to call you. That's hate. That's an opinion. And a right. Another student, Nayar Malhotra, agreed, writing, at Cambridge University, by hiring Jordan Peterson, you are giving a platform to anti-trans speech. See, anti-trans speech, anti-Semitic speech, Islamophobic speech, they're all the same thing. They just changed the bloody title, but it's the same thing. And it's saying, you cannot criticize me because you are an obia or an ist if you do. It's all a protection racket to stop free debate. And people want to stop free debate when they know they can't win it. Gender is not biological. Now that's not a debate you can win, is it? Really? I mean, come on. You can say I feel in the wrong body. I can understand that, and those people should be given all support in the world to take whatever action they want in response to that. But that's not the same as gender is not biological. It is. But this is where we're going now, because progressivism is a religion. It's not a political movement. It's not even an intellectual movement. It's a religion. And because it's a religion, facts don't matter. It's a belief system. It's not factually based. Doesn't have to be, just like religion doesn't. I mean, we have Jesus born to a virgin mother, walked on water, turned water into wine, fed 5,000 people from a few loaves and fishes, died on the cross, came back to life in a cave, and then floated up into the sky from the top of a hill, promising to come back on a cloud. You don't need facts or evidence, you just believe it. Good luck to people who believe that, as long as they don't force it on anyone else. And that's what progressivism is. It's a religion. And therefore it acts like one. Cambridge Students' Union, brackets progressive, Soros progressives, said in a statement to student paper Varsity, "We are relieved to hear that Jordan Peterson's request for a visiting fellowship at Cambridge's Faculty of Divinity has been rescinded following a further review." Following a further review, they sat round a table and said, "Oh, look, we're going to get hit with a load of crap if we allow him to be a visiting fellow, so we better not do it." That was further review. It's a political act to associate the university with an academic's work through offers of which legitimize figures such as Peterson. His work and views are not representative of the student body. Who decides that, you arrogant people? And as such, we do not see his visit as a valuable contribution to the university, but one that works in opposition to the principles of the university. We do not see his visit as a valuable contribution to the university. I mean, the scale of arrogance it takes to do that and to say that is, well, it's just mind-blowing. Some guy in Canada who was trying to stop me speaking for years, disappeared from the face of the earth now, told a British newspaper magazine, he said about what I'm saying, that, I'm basically probably mad, therefore anyone that looks at what I'm saying is probably the same, and thus, and this is the line, what is the benefit of allowing him to speak? That scale of arrogance, that scale of Nazi-like tyranny is shocking, but they are so up their own backsides, so utterly devoid of self-awareness, they can't see that they are everything they rail against, although some can and are knowingly doing it.
The world needs renegades, and it needs them now.